This is the second video for the ages data analysis spreadsheet that we will create for the class. So notice that I have a second, fifth, and seventh hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my decimal years for my second hour, and I'm going to go to copy, and let's go up here to file, and let's go to new, and I'm going to click on my blank worksheet, and let's come up here and let's paste in that data. I should say undo because I came up here and just clicked on paste. I need to right click, and across here I can just get just the numbers. It's saying, do I want to paste functions in here? I can't paste those functions in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click on that cell, and all I want is the numbers. And I'm going to tap the cell underneath my last one. Remember, I have 11 people in my second hour. So I'm going to go back to my other spreadsheet and go to my fifth hour and highlight each of my decimal years. And I can right click and go to copy, go back to that spreadsheet, and I'm going to right click inside this cell and go to the numbers again. And I'm going to paste that in. And I'm going to find my last one, go back to my other spreadsheet, go to seventh hour. I'm going to highlight these cells. I'm going to right click and go to copy, and let's create for ourselves a new spreadsheet. Underneath here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to paste again. So what we have here is all of our data in a new spreadsheet. Now there's other ways we could have gone about doing this in our other spreadsheets, but I kind of like to get my students to go back and forth between two spreadsheets just to get them the concept of copying and pasting in data. So I want to know how many numbers of data that I have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap on this letter A, and I'm going to right click and go to insert, and it's going to shift cells to the left. And I'm going to put in 1, 2, and 3. Just 1, 2, 3 real quick. And then what I want to do is I'm going to drag down 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to double click in the bottom right hand corner of that number 3, and it's going to count off 56 for me. If you didn't see how I just did that, I highlight 1, 2, and 3, and the bottom right hand corner there's a plus. I double click, and it's going to go until it has no more data next to it, and I have 56. And I'm going to double click between A and B, and it's going to put this together just right. Now I want to hit the number 1 up here at the top, and that's going to highlight the row. I want to right click and go down to insert. And up here at the top, we're going to call this decimal years. And then to the right of that, I want to type in the word average. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the average of the data set, and we're going to put the average next to the data set. So I'm going to highlight the letter C, and I want to make this centered. So let's make each of these centered up here at the top. And what we're going to do is I'm going to hit equals, and I'm going to type in average, and I'm going to double click, and I'm going to highlight, oh dang it, I want to highlight over my decimal years. I need to hit escape real quick. I need to go equals average and double click, and I need to click and hold down. I tapped just once, I made a mistake. So I'm going to click and hold down and drag down here to the bottom and hit enter, and I'm going to see that my average is 16.167. Now we're going to do some standard deviation stuff like we did before, but we're going to show you a way of how to do this a little bit easier than the last time. Obviously we're going to do that data analysis tool pack, but we're going to show you how to do things a few different ways in here. So I have the average, and I want this number to be next to every single one of these data points that I have for what we're going to do for standard deviation. So again, here's what we're going to do. I want you just to highlight over the top of your 16.16 and drag all the way down until you get next to the last number. Now what I want you to do is come up here to the function block area and tap on the right hand side. Hold down on Control, Shift, and then hit enter. And you're going to get that average number next to every one of your data points. So this is X, and this will be your average. So up here at the top, we're going to type in X minus, and we're going to go to insert, and we want to put in the symbol for average in there. Say insert, say close, and we have this. Let's go ahead and make this centered. Go back into here and say centered. On the other side, underneath E, start your parentheses, X minus your average. Go to insert, go to symbol, average, insert, say close, close your parentheses, and that's going to be squared. So I'm going to highlight that 2. Go up to home, or I'm going to highlight that 2, right click, and go down to format cells, and go to superscript and say OK. And what you have now is you have the process that we followed in the other video for starting to find the standard deviation of the object. But we're going to show you how to do this so much simpler for another data set. So again, I'm going to hit equals, and we have to have decimal years, so X minus my average, and I'm going to hit enter. And obviously I'm going to get a negative number. Now here, I could type this in for every one of them, but again, we're going to double click over here, and it's automatically going to throw that in there. So our X minus our average number squared is where we have to go next. So equals X minus your average, Shift 6 for the caret, we're squaring it, so we put a 2, and we hit enter. Now, to the right over here, I'm going to double click. And automatically, I'm going to get all that data that we had to copy and paste in another video that we've watched before. I have all of that in here now. So down here at the bottom, we need to sum this data. So I'm going to write the word sum in here, and I'm going to write the word average in here. I want you to write square root, which is actually going to wind up being our standard deviation. And then we're going to go stdev.p next to that. So I'm going to highlight this and make it on the right side. For sum, I can just tap this cell and come up here to auto sum and hit enter. And automatically on auto sum, it's going to add all this up. And I'm going to hit enter. It's going to give me a value. Now for our standard deviation understanding is we have to then find the average of that number. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say equals, and I'm going to tap on my sum number and go to divided by, and I'm going to tap on my 56. I know I could have done the average function, but I kind of like to make students go around and actually use some of the cells we have. Now I'm going to hit enter. Now to find our population standard deviation, it is actually going to be the square root of that number. So I'm going to hit equals and type in SQRT, square root, and I'm going to tap on that number and I'm going to hit enter. And that right there is going to be our standard deviation. It's the square root of that number. So if I hit equals and I type in stdev.p and I double click, and I'm going to highlight all of our decimal years. Highlight all my decimal years and then hit enter. You're going to notice we got the exact same number. But notice I did have you go through the roundabout way to find the square root for a reason, because I want to show you how easy it is to just double click and paste these functions in. Look at how fast it took us to go through and do all of these values. It's pretty cool and pretty easy to do. Now we're going to create a histogram for the class, and I'm going to type the word bins up here. And I'm going to center bins, and you're going to notice that my ages for my students are between like 14 and 18. So I'm going to go 14 and then hit enter and go 14.5 and hit enter. And Excel is going to pick up that we're going in half increments. So I'm going to highlight this, and then the bottom right-hand corner, I'm going to hold down, and I'm going to drag down until I get to 18 and a half. So I have 14, 14 and a half, 15, 15 and a half. Now we're going to go ahead in the class and create a histogram. So we're going to go up to data, and we should have that data analysis tool pack still loaded from the previous video. And we're going to click on data analysis, and we're going to go to histogram. And I'm going to say OK. And I'm going to go to input range. And so up here for my input range, it's going to be my decimal years. So I'm going to highlight all my decimal years down through here. And then I'm going to let off and I'm going to hit enter. And my bin range is that range of numbers we just created. So I'm going to click here and highlight my bins. And I'm going to hit enter. Now for output range, I want the output to be right next to my, let's say 14, and hit enter. And we're going to click on chart output and say OK. And I'm going to get a good histogram of the data in my class. Now you'll notice this is not a normally distributed curve. This is not symmetrical. So obviously I have a good number of students that are 16 and a half. I have a couple students over here like past the age of 18. I don't have anybody that's in the 14 category, but this chart right here gives you a good idea of the spread of age diversity in my classroom. I have a good amount of freshmen, I have a few seniors over here, and I have a good amount of sophomores. It's pretty obvious, sophomores and juniors. So that gives you a good idea of where I'm at. Now, for us to start talking about the empirical rule, we need a symmetrical bell curve in order to do that. So I'm going to show you how we can create a symmetrical bell curve. So I need to zoom up here real quick, and I'm going to move this histogram over here to the side. And I should probably zoom out a little bit. Hold down the control key and move your mouse wheel. That'll zoom you out really, really fast. So we're going to create a symmetrical bell curve real quick in Excel. And in order to do that, in the curriculum that we look at, we're going to talk about how there's 3 standards of deviation. Within one standard deviation to the right or one standard deviation to the left of the mean, we get 68% of our value. 2 standard deviations to the right or 2 standard deviations to the left, we get about 95% of our value, which is really impressive. So we would talk about 3 standard deviations away from the mean. We're just going to start out with going -3, and then we're going to go -2.9. And I want to start on the negative side of the bell curve. So we're going to go -3, -2.9. And I'm going to hold down in the bottom right-hand side until I get to a +3. And I'm going to let off. And what we're going to try to do next is we're going to try to get some data that's going to allow us to create a normally distributed bell curve for our chart. So I'm going to hit equal, and I'm going to start typing out norm. And you're going to see norm.s dist. That means a normative symmetrical distribution. I'm going to double click on that, and you're going to tap on your -3 to the left and hit comma and type in false. Close your parentheses and hit enter. Now, we have this number right here that's going to give us the data we need to make a normally distributed bell curve. In the bottom right-hand corner of that, I can just double click, and you're going to notice where our data goes. It goes all the way to the opposite side, and notice we get the exact same number for -3 as we did for 3. What we're going to do is we're going to highlight all of this. I'm going to highlight this whole thing, and I'm going to go up to Insert, and I'm going to go to a scatter plot, and on the right-hand side, we're going to put in a line chart, and that's going to get us a normally distributed curve. So for a normally distributed curve, we have a perfect symmetry. You can only see the -3 over here, and you can see the +3 over here on the other side. So with my students, what I have them do, and what we do as a class is, you can have your students print out this color chart at the histogram at the top and have them print this out and put that into their notebooks. But what I do as a class is I print these out for them and have them glue them into engineering notebooks. And what I had them do is like, pretend that you put a piece of yarn on top of this bell curve here, and I ask them about normal distribution. We also talk about how we have a pretty large data spread from 14 to even more than 18 over here. So what we'll do as a class is I'll ask them, what's the average age of our class? And we'll find 0, and we'll draw a vertical line up in our engineering notebook to here. And then we're going to go to the 1 on the right and the -1 on the left and draw vertical lines there. And I will ask them to go into Excel and do the following with me. So I'll scroll down here to the bottom, and somewhere over here to the side, we're going to type +1 STDEV plus 1 standard deviation. And then underneath here, I'll go, I don't know, -1 STDEV. And I'm going to go +2 STDEV. I'm going to go -2 STDEV. I can go in here and do this. So somewhere over this side, I'm going to go equals. And I'm going to say our average plus our standard deviation down here. And I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to go over here again. I'm going to go to equals our average minus 1 standard deviation and hit enter. Now to do +2, I'm going to go equals average plus, start my parentheses, standard deviation times 2, close parentheses, enter. -2 equals average minus shift 9, start parentheses, standard deviation times 2, close parentheses, and hit enter. Now you can tell that 1 standard deviation away from the mean along this side is going to be 15.15 years. 17.17 is over here. So what I'll have my students do is in their engineering notebook, they're actually going to write what those numbers are right here to the right and to the left. Same thing for 2 standard deviations at this point right here and over here. And then I explain that the person still left over here and the person left on the far right hand side is what you would consider an outlier of our data set. And this allows them to go in and fully understand what the data points are that we have as a class. So for a student, I'd say, well, 17.17, what is that? Well, let's go 12 times 0.17. That's generally 17 years and 2 months. So for 15, what's 15% of 12? So 12 times 0.15864. That person is general. I should say I did the wrong thing here. I was going to say 12 times 0.15864 comes out to 1.9. So that person is 15 years, 1 and almost 2 months old. That's what you come out to with this data. Here's what I want you to think about. Everything we just did with our decimal years of all of our students, I put the averages in. We found the standard deviation the long way and the shortcut way. We made our histogram with our bins. We went in and made a symmetrical bell curve, allowed students to put that into their engineering notebook, and we analyzed the data of every single one of the students taking this class from me. So it's a really good thing where the students can look around the classroom, see who's in their class, talk about who their classmates are, and allows them to see the age diversity of the classroom. And it's really cool for students to get the grasp of what it is we're analyzing, because it's something it's a class they're sitting in every single day. And it's a really good lesson to do because students can actually understand that they're in a class with all different types of people and all different ages, whether they realize it or not. So this is the second and final video for the ages spreadsheet assignment and how to analyze all of the data using Microsoft Excel.